For some positivity and good times. The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I am very privileged to have the one, the only, Mr. Tommy Chong with me, the man, the myth, the legend. And we've had a good conversation going on before we started the interview. But like I told him, some of this stuff is great. I got to get this recorded. So I'm going to just hand it over to you and let's hear about you.
I got such an urge to do the singing frog bit. Remember?
Hello, my honey. Hello, my baby.
Yeah. Then ribbit.
Yes.
No, we're talking about growing up in Canada with me finding out that I'm Native. I have a lot of Native, 8% Native, according to the DNA, which meant my mother was quarter and my grandmother was half. And we can trace my grandmother's roots back to Maffican, Manitoba, which is in the middle of the reservation. And so I'm not a serious quest, but I definitely have that finding out my Native roots. I got to find them out. I got to find it because I've known all my life that I had those tendencies. When we were kids, growing up playing cowboys and Indians,
mm-hmm.
I was always an Indian. even when I was a cowboy. Yeah. That's how I got into acting.
Really?
Because back in the day, there was no toy stores.
Mm-hmm.
There's you never bought anything in a store except food. And even food, it was like flour, sugar, basic right. Stuff, and as far as candy goes, we had a corner store and they took pop bottles, or you could sell beer bottles and pop bottles for sure. You can take it to the store and get 2 cents a piece for them. Mm-hmm. And if you pick enough, you got candy was, you could get a handful of candy for 2 pennies, when I grew up. So I and you talk about homeless. I remember very distinctly when we finally moved into our home that had no running water and no electricity. Mm-hmm. We had a Coleman lamp or those gas lamps, kerosene lamps. And we had a wood stove that got us through, I don't know how many winters, a good 10 anyway, Calgary winters, including blizzards, in little wood cook stove. And that's where I would sit beside. I loved the warmth of the stove, and that's where I learned how to carve. Because, like we said earlier, there was no toy stores, and if there was, if you went to a store anyway, it was for supplies.
Yeah,
it was to get your flour, your sugar, your basic needs, because you cooked everything at home. And my dad, who was all Chinese, he built. When we moved in, we had an old outhouse that was falling apart. So he built a state-of-the-art outhouse. It was probably the nicest building on our property.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was like a sauna, cedar, and it was big enough for 2 side-by-side people, and it was beautiful. It smelled beautiful because of the cedar, and he dug the hole deep enough so that there was nothing. Yeah, he did a beautiful job on this outhouse, and I think that was probably the only thing that I remember him building. Then my grandpa, on my mother's side, he showed up, and he is or was a carpenter, and so he put the porch on our house, and he kind of winterized it because it wasn't fully winterized when he bought it, when my dad bought it, and we had a shed, like a little barn, and we had chickens, we had ducks, and it wasn't pet. They weren't pets; they became pets. But my dad would bring home a chicken, and that's how you traveled back in the day. There was no refrigeration. That's why you saw pictures of people on the train or the boat with their chicken. Well, that's your meal. That's
right.
not that's supper that they're bringing, to some festival. And so growing up in those times. And there was no toy stores. At least I never heard of it. That happened later on. I think probably around the 60s, 50s. They had a toy store. I worked in one, but it was like a combination toy store and bookstore. And it was for games mostly, where I worked. But so you had to make your own toys, and Westerns were really big back then in the movies, and so I would carve my own weapons. I carved a shotgun one time, a sawed-off shotgun too. And I carved a couple of guns. They look more like zip guns, with elastics. But I'd carve knives. I still do, and I carve everything out of wood. Like here's a piece of cedar. It's like a letter opener.
Oh, okay.
But I found it on the beach. And it's so it's just fits your hand. It's so beautiful. And so I carved this, and I like to replenish the wood. Oh, nice. I look at wood like people. You can see a piece, and all you have to do is clean it up and kind of organize it, and then you get a piece of beautiful art. Like a lot of my carvings that I go with what's already there. Just polish it, clean it, and then they become little tools. Like this here, like I say, it's a letter opener. Yeah, it's a relationship I had with the environment, And then when I went to prison, I was in a desert. Oh my God, the desert floor is filled with so many goodies. People think, oh, the desert, there's nothing there. Are you kidding? Meteorites on top of the desert floor. And you can tell that they're meteorites by their heaviness. You pick up, it looks like a rock, and it's like a piece of lead, and it's a piece of iron, and it came from the heavens, and it drops there. And then there's a stone called pumice. Pumice, they use it to wash or scrub calluses and that. Yeah. But it's perfect stone for carving. You can carve it with a table knife almost. Really? And I used to gather the stones, and I made little figurines out of it. A lot of the stuff I make are pipes. Something you can smoke with.
Oh, you smoke?
I do not this trip. I got a bit of a cold, and I thought, well, I'm gonna. I use to get high. I use my strips. I got these. Here, let me find them. I got these here. They're like breath strips.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I can do one on the show because like I say, I don't smoke, and I got to go across the border today, and I don't like to get too stoned when I hit the border because they ask questions, and they like answers. You know, they don't take a grunt or a smile as an answer. See, here's the little thing.
I'll be doggone. So when did you first discover marijuana?
Officially, I tried it for the first time when I was 17, Calgary. I was at a jazz club. And now, what was the jazz club? The Foggy Manor. The Foggy Manor Jazz Club in Calgary. 17 years old. Just finished a gig. I think it was out of Bowness Park. We played a gig. Anyway, I come into the club, you know, and I used to. I never played. I was never good enough to play jazz, but I carried my guitar in there, and I looked like a jazz musician, you know. So they would let me in free, and then they got to know me, you know. And I give work for musicians, and that's all they cared about, you know. So anyway, I'm in the jazz club, and this bass player named Raymond Ma, a Chinese kid, he was one of the founders of the club.
Oh, wow.
He came up, handed me a Lenny Bruce album, comedy album, and a marijuana cigarette, my first one. So I put the cigarette in my pocket immediately. And so Raymond lit his own. He had another joint, he lit it up. And I took a toke and changed my life. Man, I saw, they had a tune played by Ornette Coleman was being played on the sound system, and it was a tune called "Lonely Woman." Because when I heard it, I had to know everything about the record. Right. So I heard this "Lonely Woman," and when I was under the influence for the first time, I literally could see a lonely woman sitting in a window, kind of looking out. You know, looking out for a lover or memories. And yeah, wow, it affected me so much. And then when I got home with the Lenny Bruce record and the joint, I would later on the next day or so, I would just take one little toke, light it up, just take one little toke, put it out. And that joint lasted me for about a month. and that's when I discovered the joys of Lenny Bruce comedy. And that really, between Lenny Bruce and I guess what's his name? I can see the name in my head. What's a guitarist? A crazy guitarist. Susie Cream Cheese.
Oh, Frank Zappa.
Frank Zappa.
And speaking of Frank Zappa.
Oh, right. Well, his record, Susie Cream Cheese, that inspired Cheech and I.
No kidding.
When we ended up, you know, now I was 17, and then kept 10 years forward. I guess I met Cheech then. Yeah, I met Cheech about that time. Yeah, it was around that time. But everything happens like either 7 years or increments or 10 years. But yeah, and then when Cheech and I, you know, met in Vancouver, everything happens in Canada, by the way. The growth, because Cheech, it was the Vietnam War that drove him up to Canada, and he was a landed immigrant. He actually came up legally, and he was studying pottery at Bragg Creek, Alberta, and he grew up really in the same neighborhood I grew up in. You know, when I was very young, and so it was all serendipity. And so, yeah, that was the first time I smoked weed, and well, look where I'm at now.
I read that you were in a band called The Shades.
Yep.
And then
yep.
I guess
that was the first band, first R&B band.
And then
The Shades the Shades, we started in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
It was really it was like a protest band because the name Shades was about the color that we were, because we had a full-blood native, Sarsi native on guitar, singing lead. Tommy Milton, a descendant of the African slaves from Edmonton, Alberta, or from Amber Valley.
Mm-hmm.
He was a singer and a dancer. And then me, half Chinese and part native. And so the three of us were rare, medium, and well done. that was our little funny thing. And we were the Shades. We called ourselves the Shades. A lot of people, when they heard the name, they thought they were thinking of the Shades, the eyeglasses.
Right.
And then there was another group back east called themselves the Shades Glasses. But we were the first, I think, the first R&B, because we started in the 50s. We started like 56, 55, 56. That's when we started playing. We actually started playing before the Beatles and the Stones. And because we had an R&B band, much like the Stones, before the Stones.
Right.
And so we were like followers of Black blues. That really we're the children. That's what all the Beatles and all the Stones and all the English acts were all products of the American blues scene, and we were no different. And the difference we had that made the Shades different was that we were all sort of well-built athletes. Tommy was a running back for junior B football. My brother was a linebacker. Pete Watts, a sax player, he was, I think he was like a tackle or something. We could have been a football player. Bernie, the piano player, he ended up playing semi-pro football just for fun. But we were all buffed, and we were all bodybuilders too. And Tommy wasn't, but he was he had boxed and all that. And Pete Watts worked at the Y, so we were not only brown and all different colors, but we were like buffed. you didn't mess with this band, In fact, there were a few times where we had brawls, where the band was involved. Usually the band, they're hiding behind chicken wire or something, or some roadies getting them off the stage, But we were the kind who would put the guitar down and go down there and duke it out with the rest of them, because we're Canadian, man. When people ask about Canada, I say, well, just consider hockey. And if you want to really know the Canadian mentality, look at the early hockey before the goalies had masks. And if you get a chance, man, when they brawled. The only no was you couldn't use your stick as a tomahawk, as a club.
Man, so you evolved from the Shades, became what was the next band that y'all became?
It was the Shades. Then we became Little Daddy and the Bachelors.
That's
because what happened, we broke up. The Shades lasted, like again, we weren't really professional musicians by no means. In fact, when we were actually like the first punk band, back in the day. Because of who we were, there would be the odd tussle here and there, odd fight, because back in Canada, especially in the 50s, they had what they called them, zoot suit, guys with draped pants.
Mm-hmm.
It was all during the 50s. They were copying the Pachucos down in Mexico, but it came up into British Columbia, came up to Calgary. There was a gang of with the draped pants and the ducktail haircuts. they were the badasses, They went to a party, they would go there to fight and cause trouble, and then grab all the hot girls, because the girls loved them. And so I half-assed. I had another friend whose brother was a zoot suiter, and so him and I, we had our homemade drapes. We're pretty pathetic. But we grew our hair long. We could grow long hair, and yeah. I remember, and that was it. And in school, there was the jocks. Mm-hmm. My brother was a jock. He had the letter and the sweater and the short haircut, and I come along and I had the long hair, and I became a jock too, but I still had hair longer than I was always told to get a haircut. By
Man. So then y'all, what was it, the Vancouvers after that?
Well, it was Little Daddy and the Bachelors. Yeah, and then the Vancouvers. There's one in between. We joke about it a lot. When we got signed with Motown, we were a bar band, and so Barry Gordy called us the Vancouver Group. That's how they named us. In fact, that almost became our name. And then we told them no. So we came up with our own name. It was, I can't say the word, 4 N's and a C. 4 N's and a C. And we put that on the marquee. We had that on the marquee. And that night we had no customers except one very angry black lady wrestler named Lottie the Body.
Oh, and, yeah. I actually read about her the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. She,
let's
see, she was part of that Motown scene.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. She sat there and she said, well, I see the ends, but where's the C? My dad, who was very Chinese, he was on the door and he had no idea that we'd put it up on the marquee, So my dad came up and started giving her a lecture. And so she literally picked my dad up, body slammed him on the dance floor, And so I had to take out my guitar and I went down to rescue my dad, and she grabbed me and body slammed my ass on the dance floor. And all the ends were on the stage laughing. They're like crazy. See, we came in there. We were kind of like the rebels of Motown. Because the song that I wrote was like, does your mama know about me? And it's an interracial song. And Diana Ross loved it. And so she recorded it. And as did George other groups. It was the first, social aware song that Motown did. And then they went crazy with Love Child and Papa Was a Rolling Stone and all those other ones, Yeah. But the Vancouvers, we shifted that paradigm, just enough. Yeah. Barry and I became, we respected each other, And when I got fired from Motown because I went and got a green card, and the Motown people had no idea what a green card was, and Barry did though, and Barry didn't want me to be fired, but I told him, I said, I want to become a Barry Gordy. I don't want to just work for one. And so he says, I respect that. And there we are. Here we are.
Man. And so talk a little bit about you and Cheech and how y'all started your comedy.
Well, after I got fired from Motown, I had to come back to the clubs because I was kind of living off the clubs when I was off with Motown. That gave me an advantage, that gave me an advantage. Like I wasn't tied to the job by no means. But when I got fired from Motown, and then Bobby stayed with Motown and all the rest of the people, they kind of hung around with Motown for a while. The band had a chance to save me. Really? Had they all got together and said, if he's fired, I'm fired. But they didn't. And they kind of freed me. And that was kind of nice. I'm glad they did. I had to go back to Vancouver, and we had two clubs by that time. We had a strip club and we had a after hours club. And so I started working at the strip club because there's nothing to do at the after hours club. But the strip club, I could work the lights and I could kind of help the girls with the show, because that was always my job, put something on stage that everybody liked. And so I started working in the improv in the strip club, and then I realized that, hey, I could turn this into an improvisational nightclub using strippers and as actresses, and which we did, and it was so cool because once you get into acting, now you're into intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
And once you get into that intelligence, and you lose that animal sort of like lust for a naked woman, now you start using their minds,
Mm-hmm.
and then we changed the whole. We didn't mean to, but we changed the whole audience from a handful of drunk bikers, that would throw money around to a room full, a packed house of theater goers who would count their change. So there was no tips, just a lot of work. And but I got to work on my craft, the improvisational acting part. And I had another partner named Dave Graham, and him and I, Dave was more or less wedded. A lot of people are wedded to Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
They love it here so much that they don't want to change anything. Just get a job and just let them live here. And that really was Dave. But when I met Cheech really was on the line from LA. And so when the improv group broke up, Cheech was the only one that wanted to keep coming to rehearsal, and I was the only one that wanted to keep doing it because I was really digging becoming a comedian. It was so much fun. After years of playing guitar, and then finding out there's so many great guitarists in front of you, that aren't even working. And then you come up with a way to whittle everything down, so you don't even have a band. You just have another guy with you, and we're making more money, and we're more popular, and so when Cheech and I found out that we could do comedy, that's when we looked at each other and said, I guess it's you and me, bro. And we took off. Yeah.
So whenever you did your movies and your albums and things like that, was it to cater to the audience that you already had? Was it a social statement, or was it just something that kind of fell into your lap?
Well, I unknowingly had been a movie buff all my life because that was the only entertainment my dad, would take us to. We'd go to the drive-in movie theaters every chance we got, and we'd make our own popcorn, which wasn't exciting, but I grew up not wanting things, because you weren't going to get them anyway. So I never had any kind of Jones for candy or soft life or anything because you could never afford it. And so I got used to not having it. And so when I was a kid, we'd go to the drive-in movie theaters a lot. And then at the afternoon, back in my day, they had the little short films, and the Bowery Boys were always it was before television, they would have the short movies about the Bowery Boys. And so I got influenced a lot by that kind of comedy, and so when Cheech and I got together, well, first of all, the records was like right out of Lenny Bruce. And then we found out what we could do with sound effects. You can do so much with the audio. and then every once in a while we'd have to translate the record bit to a live bit, and so we were very busy, performing all over the world as Cheech and Chong. Like we were in England, we did about 3 tours of Australia. And the only problem I had with Australia is that you had to write a new show. See, in America, you could get by with the old show because, not everybody would see you. And so by the time you got around, you could do it. But in Australia, they came to see us. And so we had to do a new show. And that's what made Steve Martin quit, because Steve had done, I don't know how many shows, and he just got tired of writing new shows. And he realized once he got into movies, then you're a different animal, Right. Now you have to worry about the stage show. And that's what happened with Cheech. Now, once I got tired of going to Australia, and because when you went to Australia, you miss winter, you miss summer. And then you get winter over there, then you come back for winter here. And so it was like winter, 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 winter. And here we are, we're wealthy and we're famous. We live in Malibu, but we're not living in Malibu. We're on the road. We're in Australia. We're in, all over the place. And you're in hotels. That's what you are.
Yeah.
And then you have to go from this place to that place, and you got to hurry, and you got to midnight or early morning flights, and then you got to do press when you get there, and and it was like very hectic for a lot of years. And so then I decided, that we were ready to do a movie, and we got offered the most lucrative television deal, I think, in the history of television. But I could see, television is like a hungry animal that eats, garbles up whatever creative thing you give it. It'll just eat it up. It's more, I need more, I need more. There's no end to it. And so next thing you know, 5 years, 7 years have gone by like that. And then you're no longer relevant. You were 7 years ago, but now you're not. And so you have a goodbye show, and then you hang around and wait for the next wave to come, like surfers, And so I said, but movies, now you hit a movie, and now you're around forever if you play it right,
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what we did. Again, everything was very serendipity. As I look back at my life, I can see how my relationship with the spiritual world created everything that I've accomplished, and including with Cheech or with Bobby, with everybody, because soon as they got connected with me, we went somewhere with it. We did something with it.
Yeah.
And then that moment passed, and then now, here we are. And even with Cheech, I never thought that I would ever be separated from Cheech. It was just too obvious. And we're not, we have our dispensaries coming up, and we're going public, and we're going to be bringing the stock exchange bell pretty soon.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to be into some huge money, which is really good. But and we're going to have some incredible dispensaries, and I already have an incredible line of CBD products that are sweeping the world, really. And it's incredible, that the CBD, because what we've done, we've come up with a safe, effective manner of people being able to get their rest. And when you do that, I'm starting to feel and starting to see the results, And so we're going to go public, and eventually, the states they're going to legalize it federally. So I really see the future for Cheech and Chong so bright. It's so beautiful. Cheech has already been given a building for his art, for his Chicano art.
Oh, wow.
It's in Riverside. And they turned the whole library. It was sitting there, looking for something to do, like a lot of libraries now. Isn't that amazing how the computers have put in our phones, put the libraries almost out of business?
Yeah.
Especially in Vancouver. Vancouver, they built a building and they miscalculated the building weight.
Oh, no.
They calculated the weight of the building without the books. And then when they put the books in, the building sunk.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so they were stuck with this building. They don't know what to do with it. But now libraries are sort of like fading,
Yeah.
I mean, they still got them. There's still people that use them, but not like they used to,
I'm still one of those people that like to have that physical book in my hands. I'm not crazy about reading on the computers or laptops or things. I just got to have the book.
Well, I collect books, but I don't read them. I got kind of bad vision and a short attention span. So I've got books. I just bought this book here at a bookstore, and I bought it because it's so thin. And I haven't read it yet because I need my glasses. It's all about a tree, though. I just, especially here in BC. Oh man, I got such a thing for trees. Because that symbolizes everything. It symbolizes a tree, especially with the forest fires. They symbolize growth, life, because the biggest fire in the world, all it's going to do is create nitrogen and good fertilizer for the next batch of trees.
That's why I love living here around Austin.
Yeah.
The trees, the rivers, the lakes, all that. It's grounding,
Yeah. And when people worry about it, I kind of smile. I don't argue, but I smile because I understand. You understand. Yeah. If you understand trees, they've been here forever, and they will be here forever. Because look at how many seeds one tree will pop out 10 zillion seeds. Yeah. So it's going to have a life forever, as long as there's something, and there's always something for somebody somewhere.
Yeah, true. Well, I grew up near Houston, and you've got all the refineries and all that stuff down there, and it's just gotten uglier and uglier through the years. And when I got remarried, and my wife has family and friends up around Austin, so I started visiting. And I'm like, oh, this is where I need to be. So after I retired, this is where we moved. And the being able to get out into nature, and especially to put your feet in some clean, clear water, there's nothing like it. I mean, that's meditation in itself,
isn't it? To realize the power of this planet that we're living on, and why anybody would want to leave. Oh God, when I see those people going into space and they're talking about space travel and going to another planet, I said, oh, good luck. Go for it. You know, I've had people ask me, well, what do you think of UFOs? And I said, they're obviously drones. You know, I said, because no advanced civilization in their right mind would get on a drone and go to the ends of, like, go to Mars, you know, and you know, and find what, you know, the scientists, if they find a little trace of water, they go, oh, you know, of course you got trace of water all through the universe. You know, there's no shortage of anything if you look in the right place.
True.
But yeah, anything living, yeah, there's so much magic, like the mushrooms, and the way the mushrooms will spread, the fungus spreads all around, and they and there's so many that give you, they have that psychedelic power. You know, that you can take them and you can go into all sorts of visionary worlds. Yeah.
What I'm looking forward to is the psilocybin. They're talking about actually making it to where you can use it for mental health, and apparently it has some physical health attributes to it as well. And I'm actually just started studying that, and I've had a couple of people on to talk about it. So there's a lot of strides towards alternative medicine, which is what I'd like to get into.
Well, it's not really alternative; it's the real medicine.
Well, yeah.
You know,
well, according to, you know, the pharmacies and everything, this is alternative, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Well, according to the moneymaker, you see the people that can sell you crap and you know, but everybody has their what do you call it, Achilles heel. Everybody has their reason for being on the planet. I like watching. Sometimes I'll watch the 700 Club or the you know, the cult religions, I call them, and just to hear what they did, what they'll do. They'll tell you a truth, but they'll tell you in such a way that they'll make you believe. Well, first of all these religions, they use fear, you see, and that's the last thing you want to deal with when you're in a spiritual world, because when you're in the spiritual world, that's the only thing that's lacking. Because even the word spirit, it tells you everything. You know, first of all, eternal, and if anything is eternal, everything gives you that this too shall pass kind of thing. So you just wait. It's like, to me, religion, it's kind of like storm chasers. You know, they only exist if there's a storm brewing that's going to take out cities or whatever, and so they go in the middle of it because they see all the chaos and all the thing. And to me, a lot of religions, they're saving you from yourself, or at least they found another way. In the Bible, they call it wolves in sheep's clothing, you know, where they use someone's vulnerability to make a buck, selling them something that they already have. They just don't know it. You know, that I've had that experience. But then again, you know, I understand everybody has an evolution. You know where I learned a lot about humanity in the gym.
Really?
Yeah, because you go to a gym. I remember when I first went to Gold's Gym, I'd never really been in a real bodybuilding environment. Like, I grew up in Calgary, so Calgary had a YMCA. And now that I think about it, it was like, why gay CA? Because because they would give free swimming lessons, okay? But all the guys, young guys, like 10, 12 and up, they would make us do it without our bathing suits on.
Oh, no.
Yeah, yeah. And so there would be a ton of young guys with their little bare wieners sticking up. And I used to, it always hit me kind of weird. Okay, no bathing suits. And I thought, why? And I could never kind of come up with an answer until I got older. Then okay, that's
now you know.
But they had a weight room that no one used. And so I kind of stumbled in there and I saw the weights, and then I got fascinated with this is what I needed, because I was skinny. And the reason I was skinny was because I wasn't getting fed properly. We were on sort of like that, not the healthiest diet. And then I'd been in the hospital. So my legs never really developed. I spent a year in the hospital in bed. And so my legs never really developed like normal kids would develop. I got tremendously skinny legs. I looked like a refugee at one time. And but when I got into weightlifting, then I started meeting other weightlifters, and then they started giving me little tips here and there, especially on diet. But it wasn't until I came to Vancouver that I found, because anywhere near the coast, anywhere there's beaches, you always find a gym. And that's where that's when I got into it. But when I went to Gold's Gym the first time, now that was my church. That's when I found God. You want to talk about, it was right in that little gym, especially Gold's Gym, because that's where all the champions played. And by the way, a lot of them, like Arnold and that, they did steroids in order to compete. Mm-hmm. But the guy that ran the gym, both of them, Joe Gold himself and Zabel, the guy that was Mr. Natural. And so I got to hang with Mr. Natural, and he told me what to eat, what not to eat. And he was this, he was, what do you call it? Extreme. He was an extremist. Like when he was a kid, he was one of the cliff divers that would dive off 100-foot cliffs.
Jeez. Not me.
Yeah. And he was about the same height as me, about 5'9". And his claim to fame, because he was athletically built, he'd win when he'd go a contest, he'd win every body part except the overall, because he wasn't as tall as the rest of them, and he wasn't politically connected, but he was Mr. Natural. And he became a really good friend and mentor of me, because he never lectured, never said anything. He would teach by example. This is what he would do. For instance, right up until his death, now he died when he was about 83. When he was 83 years old, just before he died, his routine every day was an hour of sit-ups. An hour. He never went by he counted reps. He counted time. He would do an hour of nothing but Roman chair sit-ups, but it was all for him. He had an 8-pack. Everybody had a 6-pack. Zabel had an 8-pack.
Wow.
And you can Google him, Zabel Kazuski, and you see him. And like I said, he was very this is my son again. He was very humble, honest. There was no mystery about it, but he wouldn't give any instruction. You would just have to look and figure out what he's doing, and if you wanted to learn anything. And I did. In fact, there was a song called Nature Boy, the one that there was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. Okay. Rumor has it was written about Zabel.
Really?
And he used to wrestle as Nature Boy, and his job really, because he was small, he would hang with the big wrestler. He'd be the Nature Boy beside him, and then he'd do all the tricks and all that stuff. But Zabel, his philosophy, we joke about it now, the people that knew him, and that his philosophy was very, very simple. Just leave it alone. That was his philosophy. If someone's going down the wrong path, let him go. He'll learn eventually. And he was so cool. When I got, I knew him before the movies. I knew him before Cheech. And then when I became with Cheech and Chong, I came back and went to the gym. And now, then that's when Cheech and Arnold and I, we got together. In fact, Cheech and I performed at one of Arnold's Mr. Olympia contests. And so all the bodybuilders got to see us. We did a bit called Queer Wars.
Oh, no.
They loved us. They loved us. We act like gay guys with come. What's the matter? I can't come. And he's trying to do, I can't come.
Jesus.
We had the best, and we did that bit in front of him. Oh, it was crazy. But all about the raw power of the human body. Zabel had that under control, but he was also in the Second World War, and his job, he was a ranger behind the lines in the Philippines and the different places. They would send those guys out behind the lines to harass and kill Japanese, the soldiers, the sniper, kill them, go in their camp, terrorize them. They were terrorists, basically. That was Zabel's job. And then when the war ended, he was on a ship on the way home. And then when they dropped the bomb, they turned the ship around, they headed back to Tokyo. And Zabel was one of the guys there that was accepting the surrender of the Japanese army. And the way they would surrender, they would give their swords. Mm-hmm. Those swords were incredibly done. They were all ornate jewels and all that stuff. And Zabel collected a big, big box of these swords. And then he shipped it home to his mother. And then he forgot about it.
Oh, no.
Big cache of swords. And so one day they're cleaning out. I think the mother died. And anyway, somebody got a big cache of Japanese swords. But it gives you an idea how wide a life this guy had. And then he ended up sitting in the gym, Gold's Gym, not answering the phone. His job was to answer the phone, but they had asked the same stupid question. So he'd take the phone off the hook, put it back on, and shove it in the drawer. so he wouldn't have to answer all these questions. Oh my God. Oh God, Zabel was so cool. 83 years old. He had malaria from the war. Oh, and so every once in a while, you go over to Zabel's house and you'd be standing, getting in front of an open, gas fire, the cook stove, trying to get warm because you get chills with malaria. And then you'd have to remind Zabel, oh, Zabel, you got malaria now. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do. Yeah. So at the end of his life, he was literally, and he told me too, he said, yeah, you wake up, you got a new ache and pain every day. And so he was so close to death. And yet there was this beautiful model waiting for Zabel to get off work. So Zabel, because Zabel, oh, by the way, he was also well endowed, which made him a hero with the gay and the straights. And it was a straight lady, the model that I seen waiting for him. days before his passing. So,
oh, wow.
So that lifestyle and that philosophy, that's where I'm coming from. I had this one aunt, my mother's sister. Now that I figured it out, they're all part native.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one aunt, she was single, and of all the houses, like my mother had 8 brothers and sisters, but of all the houses that they could go to, everybody always ended up at our house. And it was like a halfway house for relatives and convicts and all the people. So I had an aunt all my life. I can remember she would come by drunk. Literally, the cab would pull up, the door would open, she'd fall out.
Oh no.
and she's there, come and stay with us. Well, what happened to her? She got drunk and she met this other drunk in the bar. They got married and they were both drunks. And her husband, he finally dies. And then they get a knock on the door. And apparently the guy had won the Victoria Cross in the war. And he had this giant pension coming for his wife.
Oh, wow.
So from that day forward, she was welcome to our house.
Come on over.
Yeah, we got a place for you. Well, it was her home. It was her home. And we got along really good. And she eventually, because of the alcohol, she ended up with brain damage. She ended up with some kind of dementia. And back in the day, you could take him. We had mental homes in Alberta, and we ended up taking her to a mental home. We had to, she was getting too away from reality. And I was the only one that could take her, she trusted me. And then when we got there, I could hear her crying all the way down. Tom's crying for my name as he led her away. But then the next day we saw her, she was very happy there because she had a home. She had people that cared for her. And she had a job. She had a job cleaning toilets, and she loved her job. She was very proud of her job. Yeah, that Aunt Irene. Well, she was the one that got me into music. Because,
really?
You couldn't afford anything, but poor as we were, and so I needed a guitar and guitar amp. She was the one that bought it for me. So I got my first Fender amp, the first Les Paul Jr. guitar, and look where I am now.
Man, hey, don't you have another movie coming out soon?
We got a documentary.
Oh, a documentary.
It's like a docudrama. Yeah, my daughter Robbie and her guy Dave. Dave did a movie called Sling Blade.
Oh yeah.
And he did a couple of The Incredible Art of Being. He did that one, and he's doing this one, the Cheech and Chong documentary. And we did a lot of shooting. I kind of screwed it up. Well, not really. Actually, I lit a fire because we'd done it 4 years ago, just before Trump was elected. And it went through Trump's whole thing. But documentaries, or any movies, it's a timing. You got to release it at the right time. If you release it too soon, it'll be stillborn. It'll die in the theaters. You want to now. In fact, I got bigger plans for that. Dave doesn't know about, and I'm not going to tell him yet. But the documentary is pretty incredible because, like I said, it's docudrama.
Yeah.
And they talk to Cheech and I, but then they show different images of what different areas of our conversation. It's going to be good. It's going to be really good.
Well, I know when I was growing up and the group I hung around with, you had to watch a Cheech and Chong movie or you just weren't part of the group.
Yeah. So you can understand the language. Yeah. People would just say a word. Hey, Dave's not here, man. I wasn't looking at his neck, man. And everybody knows what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, I think the funniest thing was Neil Young, you know, the Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And he's married to Daryl Hannah now.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah. And Lou Adler is married to Daryl Hannah's sister, Paige. And so they're over in Italy. And they're in this high-class restaurant. And they asked the waiter there, you know, they got into conversation. He loves everything American. So they asked the waiter, they said, who's your favorite actor? And the guy didn't hesitate. He said, Tommy Chong. And Lou had been our manager. And Neil Young, you know, he's Canadian, so he knew who Tommy Chong was. And they both looked at him like, Tommy Chong. And Lou couldn't wait to tell me that story. Yeah. Yeah. Well, times are changing, man. You know.
Yeah. I got a little bit more serious question to ask you. And I know the older that I get, the more I feel this way. But do you have those moments where you just feel real sentimental, especially for the old days?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like in your down week period, you know, you get down.
Yeah.
You know, that's why my solution, I do a lot of cameos, and I get a lot of people, you know, recovering from sickness or during sickness and everything else. And I tell them, what I do, I find the humor in everything. Like if I mess up, which I do quite a bit now, I just find the humor in it. I laugh at myself a lot, you know, like I'll be driving in the car coming home and I'll forget where I'm at because I'm stoned every day, you know, and I sometimes I have to pull over and sort of regroup, look around for some recognizable sign, because when you're in the moment, like I try to be, a lot of times you don't know where that moment is.
Yeah.
You know? You could be a block from your house, or you could be a town or a country away from your house. Somehow you're going, whoa, I don't recognize anything. Last night, I don't drive much now. I got my son and my wife. My wife has to drive a lot now. She actually likes it. She's younger than me, so no, I'm at that stage now, man, where I'm enjoying my infirmities, you know, my weaknesses.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying. You know, I don't fight them. Like I found out I'm not as quick as I was, you know, physically. You know, like getting out of a chair. At one time, I'd pop out of a chair, like not even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I gotta, you know, find the okay, hold this, you know. Sort of
I know exactly what you mean.
get everything straight, and then slowly stand up. But I'm enjoying. The thing is, in order to be happy, you can't be happy if you're always in the moment, unhappy. It's hard to be unhappy when you're when you're totally in the moment.
Yeah.
Like you can be lost and you can be crying and being sick and scared and everything else. But the minute you say, okay, shut up. Listen, where are you now? That moment, there's a new you comes over. Now you're not, you know, not whining or crying. Now you're contemplating. You're figuring stuff out. And as long as you're figuring stuff out, it's almost impossible, because unhappiness comes with living in the past or worrying about the future. See, yeah. But if you're totally in the moment, it's impossible to be unhappy, because you're too busy right now trying to figure out where you are, what you're doing, and are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Any question, you know?
For the most part, you know, especially having grandkids and you know, being retired and getting to spend more time with the family, I do enjoy those moments. But you know, like my grandparents, they lived into their mid to late 90s, and when my grandfather was dying, and then my grandmother, when I say the old days, I'm like when I was a kid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it like one of our things when I'd go to my grandparents, Saturday night, we'd always watch Hee Haw. And
Oh
I
yeah.
just happened to see a commercial for like a box set of CDs for all the seasons of Hee Haw. And I sat there and cried over this stupid commercial because that's all I could think about was those days of sitting in the den with my grandparents and just laughing and having a good
Isn't that
time.
beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? It is so beautiful. Yeah. My one of my greatest memories, I had an uncle that was the opposite of my dad. My dad loved Americans or Canadians, the white folks. He loved the rock and roll music, and he loved everything new. And he was kind of like, my dad was kind of like anti-Chinese.
Oh no.
Like he when my mother passed, neighbors across the street in Vancouver here, the Chinese architect, his mother was visiting him, and they thought it would be nice if my dad and his mother met each other. Anyway, my dad did not want any part of
Oh.
he did not want, because he was so Chinese. And his dad, I guess his dad was wealthy. My grandfather was wealthy. And so my dad, and I think my dad was like his second, my grandpa's second wife. Like she was more wild and young and crazy. So I'm quite sure he was like wife number 3 or 4, whatever. And my dad, but they wanted my dad to become more Chinese. And so when my dad was 16, they sent him back to China, you know, to become Chinese. And the opposite happened. he hated it. He hated it. He come back and never wanted anything more to do with it. But my uncle, my dad's older brother, he was very traditional. And he became a diving coach. Well, first of all, he was a gymnast teacher, a gymnast at the University of Alberta. And then he became the diving coach. Even though he couldn't swim, he knew how to do the dives and that. And he was very academic as opposed to my dad. My dad was very, you know, physical. My dad was a running back in football when he was a kid in school.
Oh, wow.
And he was tough, and he played hockey, and he was a street brawler, you know, all that. My uncle too. My uncle was the opposite, and I was named after my uncle, Tommy Chong. And so when I was 16, I'd always heard about Tommy. Went to school. I loved his life. He just lived in the university and went to all the university things. And even when he died, he was still at the university. And but I went to see him when I was 16, and he kind of snubbed me. Not kind of snubbed me. He did. He did snub me. Like I knocked on his door. He was a bachelor, and I knocked on his door, and he opened the door. Yeah, I said, "Hi, Uncle Tommy. I'm your nephew, Tommy." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "So,
oh no.
Well, I guess I'll go. I just wanted to say hi." He says, "Okay, hi." Close the door.
Oh,
okay, cut to the chase. Years later, now I got movies being released in Edmonton, and my name is Tommy Chong, and my uncle is so proud of me. He is so proud of me, and he's so beautiful too. And so he came to visit me here in Vancouver. In fact, he lived downstairs. My dad lived here. in my Vancouver house too. But I got my uncle, both my uncle and my dad, but especially my uncle, got a chance to see the incredible success that his namesake. Because then I started getting letters from him all the time. He was following the movies, and I guess he'd follow me on the computer and everything. And we became really good friends. Nothing tight, but that was cute. How the 16-year-old he didn't want anything to do with, and then the successful one, very proud. Man. It was very nice.
Well, I know I enjoyed all the movies, and I don't think that they're making movies anything like what we had when we was kids. And I don't know, comedy seems to be going downhill to me. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but it just doesn't seem as good as it was.
See, back when we started the comedy, the Bill Cosby and all those guys, Carlin. And now, well, even Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart was supposed to be, and Chappelle, they're supposed to be the ones that carry the torch on, But both Kevin Hart and Chappelle, they had to get serious, because before they were making fun of people making fun of them, and now they are the ones, like Chappelle. Whoa. The way he was, it was funny, but he was talking about the trends and everything else. But it's not funny if it's taken out of context.
And that's just it. I think a lot of those people didn't actually watch the comedy special.
No,
because if you'd listened to what he was saying, I mean, come on. But one thing that I compare it to is that I always knew the people that liked me at work because they were the ones that would pick on me,
Yeah, when you talk about comedy, I think we're at a place in our life with the environment, with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about just a pandemic, because there again, it's very tough to find the humor in something that is so now,
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You try to just picture how many people have died. But then again, you look at, this is the natural thing. What got me through everything and got me through where I am now is that this knowledge of eternity. See, it's not a theory, it's a reality. Mm-hmm. And if you look at things with that knowledge, then you can, everything makes sense. There's no, why are they doing this? And I can't, there's some things you can share with your loved ones, and there's other things that you can't share with anybody. Mm-hmm. And it's like your personal feelings toward what's going on now, you see. And comedy, as we knew it before, was really bringing attention to these situations and then finding a way to make fun of them. That's why Up in Smoke was so popular. That's why Up in Smoke went around the world, and it's still being shown, it's still being revered, in so many ways, because it was pure truth. And what it did, if anything, it freed the Mexican lowrider, because you can't look at a lowrider now without smiling and thinking of Cheech, and even the cartels, even all the cartels, even those evil guys, the killers and everything else, there is an aspect of Cheech in all of them. And it's really hard, because you think of what they're doing now. Look we're so close to legalizing around the world. The smart money is making sure that they're well situated when it does happen, you know, and the quick and easy money, like illegal money, they're looking for ways to get out of it now. You would think, you know, because now there's no room for crazies. You know, we don't have room or time. Just like some of these flash mob robberies that are taking place. You know, can you imagine risking your freedom for a handbag that the minute you take it and try to sell it, someone's going to go, I don't want this shit, you know, or if I do, okay, I'll take it off your hands, but you know, and you don't have to do what they did, you know. It's so crazy. You know, the weed business we're in, we actually stopped. We were going to buy a lot of dispensaries. That was the plan. But now we said, no, we're going to wait because, you know, having a lot of wealth in one area that everybody knows where it's at, and they know that the cops aren't, there's not enough cops to stop them from coming. It's like the old days where the tribes would attack each other, you know, and that's where we're at now. But you don't need that. And so, like me, you know, I've got an idea for a movie that I'm going to do about the migration, because we all are migrants.
Yeah.
At one time or another, we all have to get up and move out of the way, you know, or we all have to get up and stand in some line. You know, that's just the nature of our life now. And so it's what you want to do is, this is what I figured out. Everything you do, there's a lesson in there somewhere. Find the lesson. Find the lesson. Yep. Like if you get lost, why are you lost? Find the lesson. Oh, I found this. You know, I was looking for something else, but then I found this. Or I didn't even know I was looking for it. Well, there it is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So what we're doing now, what I've been doing anyway, is turning my conscious life over to the spiritual world. In other words, like I was at an event where the guy was going to give a talk, and he says, can you give me some advice? And I told him with the talk, I said, well, make sure you pause a lot. And he said, pause? Yeah. I says, when you pause, you get people's attention. You can start something and then you pause, and people, they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're waiting. So now you got their attention. And then when you pause, you also give the invisible power that controls you a chance to tell you what to say, what to do. See, that pause. I learned the pause in tango. When you dance tango, the hardest thing to do with tango is to look like you're like you planned it all. And so when your partner does something, then you come along and it looks like you knew all along what she was going to do. And I mean, it looks so beautiful. And what it is, it's the pauses in tango that gives you a chance for both partners to go, what now? And then when you say what now you're connected to each other. You're not just remembering something and just saying it. That's like speeches. You know, you memorize a speech and you just say it. Actors do that all the time. They memorize whatever they're saying, they just say it. But when you pause and you think, then the universe has a chance to make whatever you do or whatever you say so special that it blows your mind, you know. Fuck. You know, like that's happened to me so many. I didn't know you could do this. And my answer is that I didn't know either.
You know, get out there and explore and see the world and experience things and get away from your stinking phone, your TV and the computer and all that all the time. And you'd be amazed what can open up to you.
Well, Jesus said to do that every chance you get.
Yeah, meditation,
go on,
man.
Get up in the mountain and just be alone with you and God.
Mm-hmm.
And whoa, there's so much can be learned. But then again, then you look at what happened to Jesus and you go, I don't know. Do I really want to go that route?
I just want to thank you for coming on. I'm very humbled for you being here. To everyone, please take care. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network